Welcome to Genuine Humans, exploring the stories behind the great marketing leaders of our time and hearing how their journeys have influenced the brands they've built. Brought to you by The Social Element, here are our hosts, Tamara Littleton, CEO and founder, and Wendy Christie, Chief People Officer.
Welcome back to the Genuine Humans podcast. And as ever, I'm here with the lovely Wendy Christie, my co-host. Wendy, how are you doing this week?
Very well, thank you. It's Friday and I'm going on holiday this weekend. We're off to Lisbon, so I am mega excited.
Oh, that's the perfect combination. Oh, I love Lisbon. How fabulous.
It looks like it's going to be really hot.
Good. And I've had just a sort of a nice week of being out and about. Again, it's been great that there are sort of conferences on. There was at MadFest at the week, and it's just so lovely to be out there. And talking about being out and about, we're so delighted to be joined today by Joe Savage, who's the marketing director at EMEA of Fitbit. Welcome to the podcast, Joe.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So, Joe, I'm going to jump straight in. And what we do with our guests is we go through, starting with the early career days, and very much kind of, if you could take your time and sort of perhaps share with the listeners how you got to where you are now.
All right, great. So I can't believe this, but I recently had my 25-year university reunion, which has flown past. So I guess that means I'm working for about, 24 years of that. And I started out my early career in Ireland, as maybe you can tell from my accent. I was born in Cork and started in Dublin with Unilever. Back then, it was pretty much the place to be in terms of learning about brands, and spent 4 years working as under the sort of Dublin office, and then started my international career when I moved to Italy in 2002 and worked on European home care, leading innovation. Mm-hmm. And then I was invited to go and take up a global position in London then in 2005 after 3 wonderful years in Italy. And then finished out my 9-year career at Unilever, having launched a lot of cleaning products, laundry products, Dove deodorants, and a lot of really great and interesting marketing challenges.
Fantastic. And was it just Italy that you went to, or did you get to sort of move around a little bit?
Yeah, so we actually, particularly in the home care business, we had a massive business in Brazil and South America. So probably, some really interesting meetings held in places like Rio and Sao Paulo. But we also had some very big parts of the global project in Asia. So, Thailand for us was a really big market, Vietnam, and then, at a time moving even into China. So having to kind of optimize a lot of the products and the marketing mixes for those markets was super interesting for me, and I got to meet a lot of really interesting people too.
Fantastic, but very much stayed brand side. You haven't drifted over to the agency land, just staying brand side, yeah?
Absolutely, not yet. Never say never, but haven't done that yet. So then, I'm sort of, because the theme of my career is after a certain point in time, I do get itchy feet. So, every few years it's good to change. And, that's the great thing about marketing anyway. So a blast from the past, I went into Nokia to the telco industry at that time. So in the massive heyday of Nokia mobile phones and when they were expanding. So I took up the role of European go-to-market lead and global go-to-market lead for Nokia. And what that really meant was going into completely new categories like maps, music, style phones. So I found myself working in Soho, which is probably one of my favorite places on earth. It's just middle of London, one of the most creative spots you could be, but also traveling to a lot of these hugely high growth markets in Asia, in Africa, but also in the Middle East, and launching all these great new phones. And of course, the Nokia journey really was a story of two halves, wonderful growth opportunity, great creativity when everything was hugely expanding. But then a lot of the real turnaround challenges in the later days where we had to just totally turn everything on its head and try to go back and recruit younger users. So I had a real experience of turnaround there, and it was ultimately acquired by Microsoft, but a very, very interesting and lovely culture to work in. and again, quite exciting, but very fast paced, which I like.
I think there's a sort of a parallel life going on as well, actually, because Nokia was one of our early clients. So because I started the company back in 2002, but Nokia was such a pioneering company, and they were doing a lot around community. And I think we were actually sort of looking after their online community and moderating content across, God, Wendy, was it about 30 countries or something like that?
It was a lot of languages. And then also the apps, people that created apps, didn't we? I think we were moderating something to do with that as well. Yeah, really exciting client.
There was some really great people that I worked with there, like Dan Goodall, Kai Torstila, Stephen Oberman. There's a few others who, they're really real pioneers, as you said, Tamara. I think it was just really, really pioneering and ahead of its time, actually, in a lot of ways.
Of course, we've all got great fondness for the old 3310 as well.
And Snake. Fantastic. And so from Nokia, what came after that then?
Yeah, so I actually went to Uganda then for a few
months.
My
goodness.
It was either a late gap year or an early midlife crisis, I always call it. But so I decided, look, sort of 5 great years there, or maybe 4 great years and one very, very hard year, I think. But, I decided it's just a great opportunity to give something back. I traveled a lot and seen, that clearly it was a very, very big difference between everything we had and we enjoyed in terms of marketers in the centre of London. And so I went off to a place called Fort Portal in Western Uganda for a few months. I used it as a chance to kind of have a break, but also totally reset and really kind of get a bit of perspective on things. And it was amazing. I actually set up, rather than working in the orphanages and in children's learning programs, I actually went kind of my own way when I went over there and set up an adult language learning program. And it's still there today. All the stuff we built is still there, and I'm still involved with that project. And I went into retail when I came back for a year, which was really great. Argos. So I worked there for about a year or so, and just helped them to try and understand how they actually bring in exclusive brands when they're competing with the likes of Amazon, with Currys and others. How do they kind of build their own portfolio of brands? So I helped a lot with that strategy. I think retail was not maybe the long-term home for me. So I sort of jumped out of that and went into something that was very different then, which was more of a startup leading smart showers and smart home products. Wow. So a complete kind of blank sheet of paper in a company called Aqualisa. So that has been around for a very long time, Aqualisa, but I got the opportunity to be on the board of the company and lead the research and development team. So all of the engineers, all of the software and electronics were all working into me because of my product background with Unilever. But it was also a case of trying to sell the company and trying to make sure that it was funded for its next round. So we came out with all sorts of wacky things where you could personalize your shower, adjust your shower. Every single person has a different shower profile in the house, like your Netflix profile. And it was just a crazy few years, but we ultimately sold the company. And yeah, so just a couple of very interesting roles straight after the Nokia challenge.
That's quite the experience to go through, to sort of take it to actually through to sale as well.
Absolutely. It's, you never forget it. It's such a huge learning experience as well. And just, what you were literally doing is finding prospect investors and pitching to them as though this is something they're going to buy. It sounds very common sense, but easier said than done, because you have to be able to answer every possible question, Dragon's Den style.
Yeah, absolutely. And was there a karaoke shower?
No, and we so much wanted to come up with that. I think one of our competitors had a sort of shower speakers, but yeah, we were unfortunately that was we had to stop somewhere. I'm sure they're going to come up with it quite soon.
Absolutely. So I can sort of see how all of this is leading towards the sort of towards Fitbit as well, because of the sort of product and the technology. Was that an easy choice for you to sort of to move over to Fitbit then?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. When I took a little bit of time out and actually, even when I had a chance to breathe after sort of, nearly 20 years of working, I got a lot into running and fitness and the gym and, and just really into wellness. And, I have to confess I was absolutely not into healthy living that much when I was traveling all over the world and doing my other roles. But I thought, well, this is a chance to do it. So in a way, kind of, I guess my personal life led me to it in that sense. But, there were a couple of other opportunities at the time, and, one really wonderful skincare startup and another one that was around kind of hotel and retail, kind of hospitality, retail sector, and then the Fitbit opportunity. And this one just screamed out to me as I had, at that time, I had identified, working with my coach, that I wanted to work with teenage brands, if that makes any
Yes.
sense to you. So not startup and not the sleepy kind of, late adulthood brands, but really the ones that were on the cusp of needing to be structured better, and they're in the next phase of their growth. And it has been a wild ride with Fitbit, because we were then acquired by Google just 3 months into my tenure there. But so it was an easy choice, and I had examined a lot my reasons for joining beforehand. So in a way, when there was a few roles on the table, it was an easy yes.
Fantastic, and such a great brand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so all this you've moved around a lot, and I think that's quite brave. Is that something, when you were a kid, did your family travel a lot, or did you live in another country, or where did that come from, do you think?
No, actually, not at all. So we were, funnily enough, I think we because we actually had a bed and breakfast. So literally, I grew up in the countryside in Ireland, but I suppose, so genuinely, I think my parents didn't have a holiday for 25 years, the poor things. But we, especially, 4 kids going through university, all that kind of stuff. But what was really interesting, and I do look back on it as pretty formative, is meeting different cultures coming through your door constantly, because we were working there since, we shouldn't even admit this, but probably since about age 8 or 9, helping out and just meeting people, kind of, and you're sort of growing up in a place where anyone from any part of the world could cross your door at any time. So very lively, very interesting. So not not in any way a youth where I traveled a lot, but I guess back then, I really resolved that I would get out and travel and really branch out a lot more. So I think it's sort of the excitement of it, but also the chance to have, the opportunity in the future.
So, and what were you like as a kid?
Probably just, extremely talkative, as you can probably tell. I think I've been accused of needing to use circular breathing when I'm finishing sentences. But so really talkative, really exuberant, chatty, just a very, very happy kid. Pretty competitive. So I was into quite a few sports, and probably a bit obsessive in that sense about a few sports. And then later on, I guess probably when I needed to be, pretty studious and hardworking, to be honest. So that was kind of instilled in us as kids in a sort of quite a clever way, that it wasn't sort of like you have to work, but just it was really encouraged.
Right.
So I think my parents were really keen to have us get the opportunities they hadn't had. So yeah, just pretty chilled out, but at the same time, then when it came to it, really, really studious and lots of energy.
And was there a childhood dream that if you were living right now, what would you be doing?
Do you know, it probably, thinking on this one, I probably would have, maybe it's not the wildest of dreams, but probably would have been a teacher of some sort. So I think, teacher, professor. And I think it comes maybe with liking to communicate, real sort of curiosity and thirst for knowledge. But I really love seeing kind of that spark of learning and development in other people. So probably the later dream that I have, once I kind of retire and hang up my marketing boots, is to go and do some more humanitarian work, in an underprivileged area. It doesn't have to be Africa again, and see if that can then result in better teaching and better knowledge sharing. And, who knows, I could end up as a tenured professor somewhere if anyone will have me.
I'm sure they would.
But so probably that was the childhood dream at the time.
And that's a lovely dream. And listening to you talk about structuring teams and having that real understanding of where you want to be and the kind of where in the life cycle the company is that you work at, that sounds perfect. And when you were small, was there anyone in particular that you looked up to, whether it was a teacher or a celebrity or an author?
Well, so I mean, we had this incredible teacher called Mrs. Dean, Breda Dean, and she's a great friend of the family still. And I think with her it was just she was just somebody who was extremely encouraging. So I think that was from no more no less than just constant encouragement. I think teachers do have a massive influence on you, and she struck that really right balance. Particularly in a mixed school with sort of a lot of different big personalities, of making sure that people who worked really hard got the recognition. So, you really felt like it was positively reinforced. I do think my parents and their work ethic inspired me a lot. Although I don't have kids myself, so maybe it inspired me in the other way, not to have as busy a household.
So not to stay at home and not to have kids, basically.
Exactly. Precisely. I just don't remember there being a lot of leisure time, but we grew up really resilient. So I think that's a lot to take from a kind of early childhood of working hard. So they absolutely loved to have fun. They were always joking around, always there for us, hugely supportive. So I think that's probably another kind of I think my parents were definitely inspiring to me.
And as you've gone through your career, similarly, who are the people who have influenced you or supported you, or anything you just want to give a little recognition to?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the first people who really saw my potential was a gentleman called Tom McGowan, who he was the marketing director of Unilever in Ireland, and I was kind of withering over as a trainee in one part of the business, because I really was not into the whole glamorous kind of fragrance and lifestyle side of the business, and I just wanted it, kind of. Actually, I just wanted a bit more of a gritty challenge. So he moved me over to, maybe for my sins, to the sort of much tougher kind of more gritty area of laundry and cleaning products, and the places where we were really losing market share, and helped me get involved in a turnaround there early. But, I was like 24 years old, and I think he just saw that I was really frustrated in my role, and said, look, this could be a bit of a change. And ultimately he sponsored my move to Italy, where I then was asked to come and lead the household cleaning business innovation for Europe. But, that was a move I made at 26 years old, where I didn't know the language and didn't know anyone.
Wow.
So I think Tom really helped me, I must say, and I just want to give him a shout out. We'll be definitely trying to meet for a beer again soon in Dublin, now that we're all let out. And then I think later on, I did want to give a shout out to Stephen Overman, who for me at Nokia was actually one of the most creative people I've ever worked with. And I think, Stephen was great on two fronts. One is, and he will laugh if he hears this, but we would sit and have my appraisal, but he would just throw away all of the kind of the business metrics and just go, what are you doing for you? What are you doing to develop yourself? Are you doing your inner work, Joe? And I laughed about it recently with him, but it was just a real nod to say it's not all about just the work.
Yeah.
And just look after yourself as well. And then secondly, I think creative reviews with him were just like fireworks. It was so much fun, and always, always, always interesting. So I learned every day, I think, from Stephen. As many people in my current role, Des Power, my current boss, and, all of the senior leadership at Fitbit, James Park. I think a founder-led business has a beating heart and a purpose, that it just invites very like-minded people. So it's genuinely the nicest bunch of people I've ever worked with, I think, in Fitbit.
That's great. I mean, you spend so much time at work that it's so important to love the people you work with.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
If I could just pick up, actually, you mentioned purpose there, Joe. And would you say that your kind of connection with Fitbit, and you talked about how you sort of changed your own lifestyle, does it make you a better leader that you're really connected to the Fitbit purpose?
Absolutely, Tamara. Yeah, I really think so. And it starts with just using the product and experiencing it, and being able to just genuinely connect with it. So sounds very obvious, but I think every role I've been in, people have seen how kind of fanatical I am about the products I lead. I think I've never been as fanatical as with Fitbit, because it genuinely makes a difference. And we've been doing, actually, as a team, a bit of work recently on purpose. So it's quite interesting that this topic cropped up. And connecting deeply to it for me has helped me navigate, I think, the market getting a lot more crowded, a lot of free subscription-free services coming into the market and crowding that part out, and just really understanding who we are as a brand and a team within it all. So that's number one. And then I think number two, just the idea that we're delivering something greater than ourselves, not to sound too worthy, but the idea we're actually helping people just make small changes every day. We can talk about that, and we can, I suppose, make sense of it when things are tough in the business. We know that what we're trying to do is play a long game to help people's lives. So yes, 100% would agree with that statement of connecting to purpose makes me a better leader.
Definitely. And I've been quite fascinated by lockdown. I mean, I know, what are we in, year 3? I can't even remember where we are. And I know that it's not, it's changed a lot now, but it's still had an impact on us. How has lockdown impacted you as a leader and your team?
Well, I would say the first year was actually, and it sounds weird, but it was great. I mean, first of all, we were very lucky. A lot of people went out and bought
Yeah.
Fitbits. Gyms closed. We launched this absolute killer new product called Charge 4. We just launched the Charge 5. So it just tends to do very well because it's our mid-priced part of the brand. So everything was going. I think we got the tone right as well. In terms of being helpful, providing a lot of services for free. It wasn't a time to start building our subscription service. We just made it all free during that time. So I think we found a lot of meaning and purpose in the first, and maybe it was quite a lot of adrenaline, I think, as well during the first year, and maybe even a degree of novelty. So we were, I feel very lucky that we weren't, as a sector, as hard hit as other sectors during that period. Of course, we had the usual things we needed to tighten up on in terms of spend and all of that. Year 2 was a bit tougher. I mean, I think we had done some resilience training as a team going into lockdown, just even before it ever started. And I think we decided to reboot that because people were spending, 11, 12 hours back to back on meetings, and we work with the US as well. So there was, even though we didn't label it as burnout, I think there was quite a degree of that creeping in. And personally as well, I think, I had probably lost a little bit of the habits of the fake commute in the morning, the running, all of that. And so I think that was a bit tougher for us, and particularly when the economy's been a bit tougher. I think now that we're back, what is really interesting is the days we're in the office feel basically like we're socializing. It feels like we're out on a night out, and maybe we don't get as much work done, but we're having breakfast, we're having dinners together, we're chatting, we're having a laugh. But the role of the office has completely changed. But you can't sustain that for 5 days. So it'll be really interesting where people pan out, and people are getting their routines back now. But it's been a tough last 12 months, I think, would be my summary.
It's funny, though, that whole concept of people socializing at work, because I've spoken to quite a lot of either agency leaders or brand leaders, and it's almost like that's a bad thing. But actually, if we reframe that as that's such a positive thing of when you do get to see people in person, we celebrate it and we have fun and we talk and we connect. And actually, it can kind of last several months if it has to, that sort of feeling of connection.
I agree. And I don't think we've got, I think hopefully what the pandemic has done, and certainly from my perspective, is we can't go into work and wear these masks anymore and, not be genuine. I mean, just let people in. And I've had deeper conversations with people on my team and around me since lockdown than I've ever had, because I think we realize that just everything is just really fragile. And just make the most of those relationships. So, maybe this is just a bit about having worked for Fitbit, but I think it feels to me like there's some real positives coming out of this at the end.
Definitely. And if we look at the wider marketing industry, what's exciting you at the moment?
Well, so the biggest thing that's exciting me at the moment, and it's something being now part of Google that I'm seeing is a true lasting commitment to diversity and inclusion. And it's something that, and unstereotyping, because I think that the work that's being done, and I follow Eleni Santos quite a lot on LinkedIn, who I've worked with actually at Unilever. And I should have mentioned her earlier as a really great leader. I think the work that is being done to unstereotype communications, have true equity, inclusion, diversity in communications is the thing that excites me most, because what we know is if we make life and communications better for everyone, it will benefit us as a company. And the biggest thing I think that's happened recently in Google on that is the feature that Google brought in on Google Pixel called Real Tone, where photographs of all skin colors and skin tones are actually true to the original tone of the skin, rather than much darker, much more blurred in the past. And the work has, it's been just recently acknowledged at Cannes, but it's not just because of it got an award that I really like it, but it's a very earnest and very sincere piece of research and development that's now come into the fray. So I think that's what's most exciting me, which is true, not just lip service, but true equity, inclusion, diversity, features, benefits, communication, and a long-term commitment to it. And I think I can see that at Google. They've really got off the fence on that one, and they're not going to turn back.
And actually, they definitely do walk the walk and not just talk the talk. I think we've seen that, and not once you sort of just talk about can and be that person, but honestly, Google's party, they held a pride party there, and it was I think one of the most inclusive sort of parties that I've ever been to. They had really thought about all of the detail, and it matters, even just going down into the bathrooms, the way that they'd labelled the bathrooms, and it was so inclusive, and I think people are really respecting that about Google. So
absolutely.
So what kind of leader would you say that you are?
Ooh. I feel like this one, the ones where I'm going to just come across as pompous or something like that. No, I mean, what kind of leader am I? I would say I lead a lot by high energy and transfer of energy. So I think, inspiring teams and lighting a fire in them is one of my deeply held beliefs, that it gets you through the tough stuff. So I'm a very optimistic leader. So even if something is looking like it's going to go horribly wrong, or the proverbials are going to hit the fan, I think, I can always see a way through to, well, here's the good we can take out of this. So I think that's helped me, I think, deliver, I think, really good results over the years. But at the same time, what I like to do is just make sure to keep an eye on the future as well. So I try to kind of course, inspire in the here and now, make sure you get the positive energy going, but really give a sense of where we're going in 2 to 3 years' time, because the horizons that marketers work in, genuinely, we are always building for the future. I kind of feel like, there is such a thing as short-term sales driving, but it has to be linked into something longer. So I think I really have a good eye on the future as well. And, I suppose just really approachable would be the other thing I'd say. I mean, most of my communication all day long, I've got about 30 people, so I can talk to any of them at any time, but it's mostly by WhatsApp, by calls, we're not sort of scheduling meetings, or there's no sort of standing on ceremony, because working in tech is chaos, right? It's organized and controlled chaos, but it's chaos. So anything can go wrong at any time. So you've just got to leave the ego outside. Ego does not play any part in how I manage as a leader. I could probably benefit from a little bit more ego in some situations, but we're always learning. But I think in terms of things changing all the time, it doesn't benefit you, because you can't move quickly if you get entrenched in your own view, or what it means you're losing. So I think it's sort of a mixture of that, high energy, eye on the future, try to be quite humanistic in my approach, and make sure that we're very relaxed with each other, and then just leave the egos outside. We're a very collaborative team here in the EMEA team, so we were just reflecting on that the other day. So fingers crossed it will stay that way.
And that openness and trust allows people to be vulnerable, which of course then means that there is even more trust, which as you say, is really important in the environment that you're in.
Yeah, and one thing that that's really reinforced that for me recently, Tamara, is doing the Marketing Academy Fellowship, because Sherilyn, who runs that, who's just amazing, she's always reminded us that you shouldn't wear a mask into work, and look behind the mask. So I've started bringing this into my team, where every time we get together on a monthly forum, where I'm doing my all of the management updates, we always take 15 minutes at the beginning to break into groups and do a behind the mask session. And, exactly your point, vulnerability, trust, we get to know each other, even though we can't always be co-located.
And we're massive fans of Sherilyn at the Genuine Humans podcast here. She's just released hers this week. So you can add that to your podcast list. It's her own personal story, and it's just wonderful. She is such an inspiring woman.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
So last question, just in this section, I would love to know what are you most proud of, like either in or out of work?
Well, I think outside of work, probably my relationships with my family and my close friends. I mean, I think that what's lovely about kind of the way, I've traveled around is I've always kept my, old friends, but I think there's a real blurring of boundaries between family and friends. I've got two older brothers, a younger sister, where we are just thick as thieves, the four of us. We are just, we're just a gang, and we all live in completely different geographies now. But I think family relationships for me is something I've been very proud of. And it's as with any family, it's tested at certain times, but we've always had that real deep value from my parents as well, just to, no matter what happens, stick together. And I have that with my old friends as well. We've got three really, really close friends from when I was in uni, and then and I think personally probably quite proud of the kind of resilience and kind of, I suppose, being able to flex my career. I didn't plan it that way, as I'm sure you always hear from people, but I think it's now a feature for me that I'm able to really pivot to different types of challenges and roles. And I think I've kind of jumped into the storm as such on a number of challenges, not knowing where they're going to go. But it's a far more interesting story to write later if you work in a turnaround or in an area that's really choppy, rather than going into something where you just, a seat in a chair. There's not many roles like that in marketing, to be fair, these days anyway. But if there were, I think I would run a mile from them. So I just kind of proud of keeping that strength, I guess, and delivering really good results through very choppy waters.
I think, yes, you mentioned actually that resilience that your family helped instill in you from those early days. So it sounds like that's what you're able to lean into.
Yes, absolutely. You've just pointed that out now, so I've now realised it. Yeah,
this is the purpose of this podcast. It's therapy.
Yes, yes. I think it's until you don't often have an opportunity to sit down and consider your story from the beginning to where you are now, and it's interesting to pull those themes out. And I think it's quite inspiring as well for people coming into the industry to hear that it doesn't have to be, oh, this is your lifelong dream, and and this is what you did at uni, and this is the very straight career path that you took. I think to hear these stories and about people making brave choices and unexpected choices, I think it makes people think, well, maybe I can do that.
Yeah, totally. And after lockdown, you actually, social confidence, by the way, after lockdown, I walked into a room of Google people, because now it's this big, quite scary world for us. We were, kind of medium-sized teenage brand Fitbit before, and now we're in this room, and I had to remind myself, I mean, exactly what you're saying, Wendy, which was, we're all resilient in our own way. I've done a lot of things, but I just walked into the room and I said, right, I'm just going to go and talk to everyone I can and, do this again from scratch, because, that's what we do. And this is a completely unknown situation for me again, which is it's integrating into a new company. So no, when I've done talks recently with, say, graduates or people in their early career, and said to them, don't do a career plan every year, just do it every few years, because you gotta, have that room for serendipity and the stuff that scares you. And by the way, the stuff that goes wrong too. I've made some mistakes in my career, and they've been probably the best learning moments. So definitely, would buy into what you said.
So we'll move from that now until the section that of the podcast where we get a bit more personal. Some may say frivolous. So let's just launch in. So tell us, what's your idea of a perfect weekend, and if you have any guilty pleasures?
Oh, great. Okay. Well, I can tell you last weekend was pretty close to perfect. I flew to London, marched in the Pride Parade with my brother. I went out for a beautiful dinner to one of my favorite restaurants, Barafina, tapas, with two girlfriends of mine, gossiped for the entire night in a wine bar run by women and run and produced by women.
Fabulous.
Really interesting. And then on Sunday, I went to Brixton Academy to see LCD Sound System. So this was like, I think I came back really, really tired, let's call it, but it was just perfect. I probably would have been made better if my other half was with me, but we couldn't make that happen.
It was a joyous Pride as well, wasn't it? I was marching with my girlfriend and her two boys, and it was just such a, it was wonderful. You could tell.
Joyous is just the perfect word for it. It was just, everyone was so friendly and welcoming, and just, I think, so happy to be there. And it was incredible. I mean, London is probably the best Pride anyway, but it was really incredible. And in terms of guilty pleasures, I absolutely adore rock music. Most of my friends around me do not. So I think, it's just, I'm always sort of, I went to see Guns N' Roses, the Eagles, got a number of other rock bands I can't think of at the moment recently. And it really is, trying to pull favors to get people to go with me.
I like a bit of rock. I'm right there with you. If we could have a peek inside your fridge, what would we find? Would it all be fruit and veg, healthy stuff?
So, well, I guess working for Fitbit, I probably shouldn't. But no, so yeah. I mean, I'll put it like this: we're very lucky at Google that we get our food at work. So there's probably not much in it apart from proper like fruit and stuff for work. But I'm having a housewarming party this weekend, so there's quite a bit of vodka in there too. But that's unusual. So I think a bit of lots of breakfast things. I rarely eat at home, to be quite honest. These days, but I it's one of my resolutions is to get back to what we were talking about lockdown. Home cooked meals. We're really lucky that we get meals at work, but it's doing that in the evening. I think is kind of helps you do that a little bit more. But yeah, so I think I'll get the vodka out after this weekend and then back in with the salads and everything else. So.
Wonderful.
And if you're sort of not eating at home as much, do you have a bit of a favourite restaurant, whether that's an all-time favourite or a shout out for a local one?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's the best brunch place I think I go to in Dublin is called Press Cafe. It's in the National Print Museum. So you can see all these beautiful old prints from the original print press in Dublin.
Wow.
But have just the most gorgeous kind of almost home cooked brunch at the same time, which is amazing. And I always promised I'd keep it a secret, so now I've said it, but let's
you won't be able to get a table now.
They're really amazing, and I think there's this. I mean, my favorite tapas place in Dublin is called Tapas de Lola. I'm just a tapas person. I was at Barafina in London last weekend, Tapas de Lola in Dublin. But yeah, there's some really good ones. And I think what's really interesting, I'm going to West Cork on my holidays this year, is all of the kind of whole food truck scene that's popped up in Ireland.
Oh,
I
yeah.
came back after 17 years and it was all about Michelin stars and money and all of that back then, which I wasn't really into anyway. But this time around, it's much more about the ramen trucks and the really interesting kind of new and kind of world foods, I think, that are going on around, especially around beach resorts in Ireland. So look forward to that this summer.
It's so sociable as well, isn't it? You can kind of try different things and wonderful. So you've visited a lot of different countries. Are there any countries that you're absolutely dying to visit now that we can sort of travel a little bit more?
Yeah, I've got a fascination with going to Cambodia because I think obviously because of the old temples and Angkor Wat and the everything that's, I guess, hugely interesting from the very far past, but also, some of the more recent stories and kind of, I suppose, more tragic history of the recent part. It is meant to be absolutely beautiful. So I think definitely a kind of Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam trip is on the cards. I can't believe I haven't made it yet. And then kind of on the way other end of the spectrum, in terms of a nature break, I think Costa Rica has got to be on the list. I don't know if you've ever been, but no. It's just everyone I've spoken to just raves about it. And I did do, when I lived in Italy and, a bit in the UK, I did quite a bit of hiking. So I think it's just, those places absolutely fascinate me. And I think cities, I've been to places like, say, Buenos Aires or New Delhi, or, I want to get to know them a bit better because there's some cities that I haven't really spent a lot of time in that I want to get to know better as well. Now we can travel again.
That's quite a long list.
Yeah, it is.
And if you had to limit yourself to one type of exercise for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh, running, definitely. I absolutely love running. And it's we did a 10K recently with work and I hadn't trained for it. So I was kind of like, 10Ks, I used to do these without any problem. And I think it was just pure adrenaline because of again, events are back. And it's just, I just absolutely love it. And you can do it anywhere. So I've often started a weekend away with friends by arriving an hour earlier than them and just going for a run and things. So you can do it anywhere. And I would, I hopefully I'll be running till I'm 90, 95, let's say. That's my plan anyway.
Sounds like a great plan. How would your friends describe you?
I'd say they would describe me as very loyal, number one. I think loyalty always comes up. Very compassionate. I seem to kind of be there for them in terms of, I think they've said to me that I can empathize in a really genuine way. I think, really kind of there for them. I think definitely life and soul of the party. That is gone a little bit on the back burner the last couple of years. We'll see how my housewarming goes this weekend. And yeah, just somebody just relentlessly optimistic, and yeah, just always seeing the sunny side of things and making people laugh.
Fabulous. And our last one, karaoke go-to song. Is it going to be a rock one? Do you have a go-to karaoke? Are you a karaoke fan?
Well, yeah, I did one recently at my other half's work too. I'm not sure he totally appreciated it, but it was Son of a Preacher Man from Dusty Springfield. So it was, I spared them the high notes. I'll just put it like that. But I'm a very enthusiastic karaoke singer. But yeah, probably that or Don't Stop Me Now by Queen.
Fabulous. We're coming to the end now. So I just wanted to check, is there anything that you didn't get to talk about that you'd like to share, or any closing thoughts? I'll give you the platform.
Great. Well, thanks. I mean, really just a big thank you for doing this, because it sounds like there's a bit of a gap in the market for just a general conversation about who people are, rather than just focusing on, you know, how good they are at marketing or otherwise. So I just think thanks for doing that. And I think, you know, the more we can do to promote people just being themselves at work, you know, I'm definitely going to keep banging that drum, because in tech, and in Google especially, there is just no time for anything else. We've got to take the full value and full energy of people. So I think, you know, the thing that I think being on this podcast, but also I think the journey we're on with Google and with Fitbit tells me is that there's just really no room and no time for anything else. Just be yourself and you know, and demand that from the people around you or your bosses, you know, as well, your managers, because I think that to me feels like it's going to release most of the human potential that we have in the workplace. And get us through what I think is going to be an even faster, blistering pace of change over the coming years. So just, you know, being really, really human, title of the podcast, I think will get us through that. So just a kind of a closing thought. And obviously you guys are really at the forefront of that by doing this podcast. So thank you for doing it.
You've been listening to Genuine Humans, brought to you by The Social Element. If you loved what you heard, remember to subscribe, or you can find out more at www.thesocialelement.agency.